Last night, the Grosse Pointe Shores City Council voted 4-3 to ban pit bulls in the city. It comes after a dog owned by a Detroit Lions player bit another dog, requiring emergency veterinary care.
Similar bans have already been enacted in cities and towns across Michigan, and some have been met with resistance. The Grosse Pointe Animal Adoption Society has threatened to end its contract with the city.
Joining us tonight to discuss is attorney Celeste Dunn, whose practice specializes in animal law. Thanks for joining us tonight, Celeste.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Shayna. Jeff, thank you.
So I know in the past you have defended or represented families whose dogs have been deemed dangerous. So I think safe to assume that you would oppose this pit bull ban. So why don't you start by telling us, what do you think the Grosse Pointe Shores City Council got wrong last night when it decided to ban them?
Well, I think from an overall perspective, whenever you have an ordinance or statute that is a correction of an event that is highly public or has some appeal to the public on it, the overcorrection on an ordinance or statute is always overzealous. So what you have here is a specific breed being targeted for basically elimination within the city. And instead of looking at, we have more than just pit bulls that attack other dogs. I mean, in the last 4 or 5 months, I've had a Labradoodle, a Golden Retriever. You know, any big dog that's at large has the ability to create some issue or damage. So the focus should really be is containment. If you're a dog owner, responsible ownership is the bottom line. Instead, what's happened here is the Grosse Pointe Shores Council has said, look, we're going to eliminate one specific breed, and in the methodology and what we're going to and how we're going to achieve that is frankly unconstitutional in parts. They're allowing their police department, or if they have an animal control officer, to basically impound any dog they deem to be a pit bull. There's no allowance here for a warrant or a court order, or basically the fundamental tenets of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. So it's the culling of the dogs. The Grosse Pointe Shores is coming for your dogs, and it's up to a police officer to determine whether or not they think you have a pit bull or not. And the secondary problem, and that's a huge problem, the secondary problem is if you have an emotional support animal. Federal law in Michigan disability law doesn't distinguish between a pit bull and a Rottweiler and a Shepherd. If you need that animal for your health in care because of a disability, those animals are completely exempted. So what happens when the police officer shows up and says, give me your dog? I mean, can you imagine? We live in the United States. This ordinance says they can come and say, give me your dog. And what if you say, well, it's an emotional support animal? At what point then do you have to disclose what would otherwise be HIPAA protected rights in order to convince the officer on your doorstep that they don't have the legal authority to take your animal?
So for those that are opposing this right now, what is their recourse? As an attorney, what can somebody do that, let's say, has an emotional support dog or says, no, this is ridiculous?
Well, that's an excellent question, because I'm looking at this and wondering if we should be filing a federal action now to stop the enforcement or enact. You know, it takes place in 30 days. It's going to be in effect. I've been contacted by some that are interested in pursuing it and challenging the legality of it. And I think it has muster, it has legs. There's other ways to accomplish this. And this ordinance, and the way that this ordinance is laid out, is not the right way to go, in my estimation. I mean, for instance, too, you know, what year do we live in? If your dog has puppies, they're pit bulls, you must deliver them for destruction. Puppies. This ordinance says you kill puppies. And it goes on too. If you have a pit bull, then it can be destroyed for doing absolutely nothing. Now they do have allowances to remove it from the city, but it completely contemplates euthanasia or destruction of these animals. And it allows the police to shoot an animal if it's at large that they then deem may be a public concern. The Attorney General has weighed in on that issue in the mid-'80s, that we're just not going to go around shooting dogs.
Now, Celeste,
So
there's often in this conversation, you have people saying pit bulls are not inherently dangerous. As you said earlier, many big dogs can be dangerous. What do you say to those people, though, that have been on the other side of it? Maybe the breed is not dangerous, but they tend to end up being dangerous if they're in the wrong hands. What do you say to the people, like in the David Montgomery case, the owner of that other dog who was saying when you're on the other end of it, you take a different stance?
yes, and I understand that. What really I think the message needs to be with stronger enforcement is fencing. These dogs, big dogs should not be at large. They should not be running at large. That should be communicated, because if you sit in my seat, and again, my last 5 or 6 cases have been, I've got a Rottweiler, Labradoodle, Golden Retriever, Pit Bull. I do not have breed specific defendants, frankly, and I'm not making light of that. It's very serious. But in every case, the bottom line is the dog runs at large. So to me, to make sure that nobody's on the other end of it, because I don't want it to happen, right? I don't want that other person and that other dog to be in this situation. So the message should be that, look, it's not this particular breed, it's irresponsible dog ownership. And that should be held accountable. That should be held to a higher standard. I don't think people really fundamentally recognize that when their dogs are allowed to run at large, they're taking a big risk, not only with their own dog's life, but then with the other person on the other line. And that should be prevented.
Attorney Celeste Dunn, we appreciate you being here tonight. Certainly this controversy going on will not end anytime soon. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you.